10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. Hello. This is the No Soundbites Allowed podcast with your host, Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, here with everyone. And I hope everyone's going to have an excellent day. I'm going to be here for a little while, as we always do. We are here to talk about the issues that are affecting everyone. And it's 2019, and God knows the first thing I want to say is I am so happy, so very happy to be here with everybody because I enjoy you guys. I enjoy being here with everyone. And I hope that coming into 2019, everyone is feeling well, that you're doing well, that you had a great Christmas, that New Year was exceptional, that you were surrounded by friends and family and great joy and love. I do want to mention to one of my friends out there, Mr. Bob Murphy. He recently lost a family member. The announcement just came out today, and I do extend my condolences to him and his entire family. We are sorry to hear of your loss. Please, Bob, if there's anything you need, just if I can do anything, just let me know, and I'll try and help out as much as I can. So we did want to share that, and if you are a friend of his, Bob Murphy, please let him and his family know and your condolences, and please have a place for them in your heart going forward. So that's a little bit of the sad news, and I'm sorry to hear that. Now, one of the big things you may notice, and I'm sure someone may mention this at some point, and everyone is free to do so, I shaved. Now, it was November, got a little lazy, it was the no shave November thing, let it grow in, and of course, my face got a lot fuzzy, and I was very surprised that while I'm a little bit salt and pepper in the hair, looking at the beard, it was completely gray. I didn't expect that. So, new year, new start, decided to just shave it all off and start clean shaven, which I am now. And people tell me I look a little bit younger, so let me know what you think of that. And you know what? I'll even put that up. Since we're doing this as a Facebook simulcast live, I will put it out there for people to be able to ask a question, if I can. There it is. I'm going to create a little poll here, and I'm going to ask the question about this. If I should grow the goatee or stay clean shaven. It's a little bit odd. It's not a normal question. But, you know, it's something, it's different. And at first of the year, let's have some fun with it, you know. Just, you never know what people will think, and you can't find out until you know. So we'll ask that question out there, and it's available for the public. You know, whatever people think, let me know, and we'll try and have some fun with that. So that is up now, and it's live, and you can ask that question if you wish. All right, and let's see. So that's the poll, and it should be up and live now. And I'm making sure that it's live for everyone. Okay, and that's that. So we've got the poll up, and people can ask about that. And I know, so we're out there, and I'm just making sure, I'm just letting a few people join in with us before we go any further, and then we'll be talking. There's a lot of things to talk about here. There's a lot of events that are going on, folks, in this region. In the area, there's some very interesting news that I want to talk about in terms of the DA Steve Cornwell, and he has some very exciting news. I don't know if everyone caught this or knows what the impact of that is going to be, but we're going to talk a little bit about that, and just letting people know on the podcast that it's live. Okay, and we're getting that out as well. And let me ask, so we want to talk about Steve Cornwell. We want to talk about the federal government shutdown, which is now approaching 3 weeks. And how much is that going to cost? I mean, what is that really going to cost the average person in America? Has anyone thought about that? Has anyone contemplated that? Does anyone know what that is? And is it any different than what we've seen in the past? That's a big question, and you don't hear that a whole lot. Because very often that's glossed over. It's supposed to be the most devastating thing that's available out there now. It's supposed to be terrifying and terrible. But you know what I notice? It's really not having that much of an impact on people. It just really isn't. And you have to wonder, gee, why is that the case? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, about how it's actually impacting people and where we're going to see the cost and the impact of that. Want to talk a little bit about what's going on here in New York State. And let's talk a little bit about the bills. I know most people never look at this, and the news media almost always glosses over this completely and just forget about telling people about, hey, here's this bill or that bill. They just don't tell anyone anything. They always fail to mention some of the interesting things that are going on. So what is our state government actually focused on? We know that Governor Cuomo said that he wants to make New York State a progressive state, the most progressive state. Well, what are some of the things that will do that? What are some of the things that are going on in the background that you're not hearing about, the stories that aren't being talked about? Kind of like in 2018 in November, after the election, when no one was paying attention to politics whatsoever, State Senator Kevin S. Parker came out, and suddenly he decides that he wants to go out there and put in this bill that says that you have to give up your Fourth Amendment rights, that you have to give up your passwords and your internet searches to allow the government to find out everything about you and your life so that you can keep your Second Amendment rights, which is scary, okay? That's just wrong. That's government intrusion all the way, and that's what they're looking to do. And you have to ask yourself, well, why would they do that? Why is that the case? And you don't hear a lot about that because the media doesn't really cover it. As a matter of fact, if I wasn't one of the first ones out there making people aware of it, you have to ask yourself, gee, how many people would know about it, and how would people be reacting? They'd wake up one morning and suddenly they wouldn't have their Second Amendment rights, or the government would be demanding that they give up their privacy, their private messages, their private conversations with their loved ones and friends. God knows who's going to have that information and how they're going to use it against you, because there's no guarantee of your safety or protection for doing this. And people would just wake up if it weren't for the media properly doing its job and saying, hey, here's what's going on. So I want to address a little bit of that as well. And, that's in the state Senate, that's in the state assembly. And as I hinted at, one of the other big things is something a little bit more local for my region in the Broome County area. Excuse me, something's in my eye there. But in the Broome County region, there was an announcement that came out yesterday, January 4th, Friday, middle of the day. No one was expecting this, or at least none of the major sources had known about this. This was based on a rumor that had been going around since roughly mid-August of last year. And we're now seeing what may be a confirmation of some of the rumors that were going on. And what does this mean? Where is it going? It's from, as I mentioned, I think a second ago, about DA Steve Cornwell and how he may have an impact on the region and possibly the state or nation going forward. And there's a couple of different directions it could go. There's a couple of rumors out there and my own personal viewpoint on that. So we'll talk about that in a second. So those are a couple of things that we want to go over. Going to be here for an hour and a half, as usual. Every Saturday, we come out. Other than the Christmas holiday, we consistently go. This is, I think, the 129th podcast that I have done under the No Soundbites Allowed podcast. I believe this is the 30th simulcast with Facebook that we have done live, talking to you about your thoughts. Now, this is me these are some of the issues I want to talk about, but of course, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. This is a conversation with you about what's affecting all of our lives. Maybe you have a great idea to help our state, to help our nation, to help our local community. And the regular news media would never give you that opportunity. Well, that's what this is. This is your opportunity. This is your direction and ability to let people know what's going on, because you matter and your voice matters, and I want to hear your voice, and you deserve to have your voice out there. So that's what we want to try and do here. As you can see on the screen, if you're looking at this on the Facebook Live, you'll see that you can reach me. You can find out more about No Soundbites Allowed at our website, the vosspolitical.podbean.com, and you'll be able to hear all, I think there's about 150, 170 podcasts on there, including some of the other podcasts that I have done over the years. This is our 4th year with a podcast, by the way, for the No Soundbites Allowed podcast. You can also contact us at our political website, which is Voss Political, at the mvass.com. You're happy to see over 2,000 articles and 400 videos, 500 videos that we've done over the last 12 years. And you can look through that and see more information about that. You can contact us at Twitter at mvconsult. And we're always happy to hear your comments there. And you'll very often see comments from me talking about what's going on in Utica, talking to WUTQ, where I'm often a guest and featured speaker there, and following what's going on in Utica, New York, in the northern part of the New York 22nd, as well as at WMBF and here down in the southern tier region of New York. And so we're always happy to hear, and also talking about state and national news and issues that are going on. So always happy to have that. And of course, while we're doing the Facebook Live commentary, you are more than welcome to call in, and we'll get you on here live, talking with me about whatever issue it may be. So that, I think, covers a lot of the start, the intro here for the new year. It's a lot of information. Usually we go right into a bunch of the issues, but this is a lot of information. We want to get through that. So let's actually start talking about, I want to start the conversation with what's going on in Congress and the gender issues that's going on. We've seen that on the Friday, the first legislative session of Congress came out. They put out roughly 250 bills. Some of them are actual bills under the HR or House resolution status. Some are joint resolutions with the Senate, which would be an HJ res. That's what these, when you see these things, this is what these mean in the bill. House joint resolution means resolution between the Congress and Senate, and that's why it says HJ res, and that'll be a number. So there's several of those. House resolutions, that's just the feeling of the House. So if you see H res, R-E-S, res, then that just means that's the feeling, the thought process of Congress, and that's what those bills are for. They don't actually have any real power. They're not like if it passes, it doesn't make a law. It just means that's what the Congress is thinking about. And then there's the HR House resolution, which is actual law, HR, and then something that would be a bill that would become a law and have power and force behind it. So just a quick lesson in what politics, what that means in Congress. If you ever look it up, what does it actually mean? What do those letters represent there? And before I get into the bills, let's talk about the big thing that's in front of everyone's face. We're talking about the deficit. I mean, I think everyone's interested in that. And let me ask, does anyone know how much money is being spent on the government shutdown right now. And I'll ask that online as well. And just going to ask that of people in case people are not able to see this or they're seeing it a little bit later. Want to make sure we ask. Okay, so what I just typed out there and what I was just saying, and something that a lot of people are not familiar with, and that is that as of today, when we were about 3 weeks into the government shutdown, and as of January 5th, which is a Saturday, at 12:18, what we can tell you is the estimate is, and there's never an exact number on these things, and the numbers jump a lot, but as best as we can tell, we are on pace to be at about $3 to $4 billion. Probably it could be as high as $5 billion. So as of this time, we have spent roughly the same exact amount of money that President Trump has asked for to build a wall at the southern border. If Democrats had said yes, we would already have spent that money, because that's exactly what we would cost. That's exactly the amount of money we're talking about. So it's kind of amazing here. Well, one, that our government has already spent $5 billion. Let's call it five just for round numbers. $5 billion in 3 weeks. It's stupid. But probably one of the things that a lot of people are not familiar with is, even though it costs $5 billion, this is about 0.001% of the actual budget. That's crazy. And that's actually, let's see, how would that be? It's 0. That's 1/10, yeah, 0.1% of the budget. That's just a crazy amount. I mean, that's just insane. That's nothing. That's nothing compared to the government spending. I mean, it's ridiculous. How do you make this make sense to people? How do you make this make sense to people so that they can say, billions of dollars, billions and tens of billions of dollars? How does that make sense? I mean, when you talk about trillions of dollars, it's just an enormous, ridiculous amount of money. And the best way I've seen to explain this is, let's put this into a real world example. $4,000. The government spends about $4.1 trillion a year. So if you just make that into real world numbers, and let's say that you're buying a car for $4,100, $4,100, you want to buy a car. And you're going to spend $4,100. And the salesman says, not a problem. We can sell you this car that you want for $4,100, but there's a $5 tax. You're going to spend an extra $5. You have to actually spend $4,105. Otherwise, I can't sell it to you. You can't have the car. You can't get anything. It's going to cost you $4,105. Okay? And you say, no, I won't pay that. I will pay $4,100, can't pay the $4,105. The $5 is too much. It breaks the bank. I can't possibly afford an extra $5. That's what you're asking. That's what you're saying. I can't possibly spend another $5. That's just too much money. It's insane. No, I'm not going to do that. What? Whoever says that? Who in the world would say that? That you're able to get the car that you want. Doesn't matter what car it is. But you are able to buy a car that you want to own Your car, your choice. You get to buy it, and it's going to cost you $4,100. Whether or not that's too much or not doesn't really matter. We're not even going to bother with that. But you're able to buy this car, and you're going to get it for $4,100. And because it's $4,105, nope, not going to do that. And now you can't go to work. You can't get paid. You're not able to pay your bills. Your bills are piling up. You can't pay for your food. You can't pay for your rent or your mortgage. You're in trouble. Okay, you can't pay for your electricity. You can't pay for anything because you can't get to work and you can't make any money because you won't spend $5 to get the car. That's the real world equivalent. This is the way that no one talks about this, and I am always amazed by this. When I listen to the people talk about this in the government, they're talking about the shutdown and how terrible the shutdown is, and this is going to be so immensely horrible. Let's get this right. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and now Minority Leader Senator Chuck Schumer have effectively said that because they do not want to have a secure border for the United States on the border of Mexico on the south, which would cost $5 billion, because they want to have the ability to allow tens of thousands of people at a time to come across our border, come into the United States, possibly break laws, possibly put a burden on taxpayers by getting government aid and other complications, and break our laws. More importantly, break our laws, actively become criminals and actively violate our laws because they want that. They're willing to not spend $5 in this example. That's what's going on. And we have already spent that in the shutdown. We've already spent that amount. If they had said yes, this would never have existed. And you have to ask yourself, does this make any sense whatsoever? Does the position of the Democrats make any sense? It's obviously not about the money. This is not about money. This is anyone who tells you that the government shutdown is about money has no idea. Either they don't know what they're talking about or they are directly lying to you. That is an absolute fact. Because we're talking about a negligible, that's the word I was looking for, negligible amount of money. We're talking about $5. It's meaningless by the amount of money that we're talking about. Because it's $5. It's $5 billion, but in a $4.1 trillion spending for the government, it's a rounding error. It doesn't matter. It's immaterial. And I know people are thrown by, billions of dollars. Oh my God. So no. We're talking about trillions of dollars, and it's meaningless. It is literally meaningless when you look at the big picture. And we can find that money everywhere. Now, the big things, but you have to say to yourself, is it really that big a deal? Because at this moment, has anything happened? In the last 3 weeks, did Christmas stop? No. No one lost Christmas. Everyone I know of had Christmas just like normal. Just like everyone I know enjoyed the New Year just like normal. Nobody noticed. Nobody suddenly was out on the streets. No one died of starvation. The government didn't get, country didn't get attacked because we're defenseless. No, I know there's all kinds of doom and gloom and horror that's spoken about when you hear government shutdown, but effectively, nothing's happened. It has not affected anyone in any real way. And let's make sure you understand. And I know there's some posturing in Congress right now saying, we got to make sure everyone gets paid. All the government workers, they're going to get paid. That's already automatic. So government employees, whether they are working or not, only 25% of the government is shut down, by the way. Only 25% of the government isn't at work. 75% of the government's working. So think about it. For 3 weeks, 25% of the country, of the government, has been shut down, and the daily lives of just about everybody in the nation is unaffected. Not a single person noticed the difference. The average person in America went to work, had their vacation, spent their holidays with their family, and didn't notice a single thing. Which means to tell you that we have too many people in government. Our government is bloated. We have too many people doing too little work. It's not efficient, and we really don't need those people. We quite honestly don't need the extra people. If we can operate the country, and we can, as well and as effectively as we can, that we can go 3 weeks without 25% of the government in place, it tells you that we don't need them. We have redundancies out there. We're spending too much money, quite honestly. But let's go beyond that. And let's say, so how is this going to affect people? Now, I know a lot of people want to say, well, the stock market's been down. It's been bouncing around. The stock market is not reacting to the government shutdown, because the government shutdown doesn't really affect anything that's going on in the stock market at this moment. If it goes 3 months or so, then you're going to start seeing that have an impact on the stock market and the way that they're looking at it, because of the delay of individuals in the stock market from being able to buy things because they're not getting paid. So then you would start seeing that. But the reality is, no, it has no impact on the stock market. The stock market's not reacting to that. The stock market is reacting to the fact that Nancy Pelosi is now in charge of Congress, and she has promised to stalemate the entire government, like with the shutdown. Excuse me. Bless me. Which probably means you know how that saying is, if you sneeze while you say something that's true? There you go. But Nancy Pelosi has promised to stalemate the government. She has promised since May of 2018 that she is going to increase taxes if she can, that she wants to increase the personal taxes. She wants to increase the corporate taxes, that she wants to reverse the tax cut that allowed the government, allowed unemployment to go to 3.9%, which she and all the Democrats and President Obama promised the nation, you'll never see 3.9% unemployment. We're there. He promised that you would never see the self-employment numbers for the nation increase. We're at 9 million. Promised it would never hit there. That's over 1.2 million more than when President Obama was in office. He promised that we were going to see more and more people out of work and not able to work. The not in the labor force numbers are at 74 million and is remaining there. It's been steady for a year, actually for 18 months. It has not increased, unlike under President Obama, where it increased by 15 million people, which is why the unemployment rate dropped when he was in office. We've seen the unemployment rate drop under President Trump, and that number has remained the same. That's people who don't count for unemployment but still aren't working. That's a very big number. So that's remained steady at 74 million. They promised us that that we would just see hell on earth and the economy would be crushed if we did the tax cuts. The very same thing that Democrats and Republicans have been promising the nation for 20 years. We finally did, became competitive across the world, and we're seeing enormous benefits. And Nancy Pelosi, along with Representative Brindisi and also Senator Chuck Schumer, have promised that they are absolutely going to, if they can do so, they're going to reverse that they're going to raise your taxes, and they're going to kill the economy. And the stock market's reacting to that. That's what the stock market's reacting to. That's why you saw after the November elections and the midterm elections, the stock market crashed. And you saw it again at the first, here in the first week, in the first trading days of 2019. The stock market crashed. It was the reality of what was going to happen to our government and our economy with Democrats taking control, and then the realization that it's starting. And that's what happens. And as a former stockbroker for over 7 years, I'm not surprised. This was predictable. As a matter of fact, I did predict it. You can listen to some of my prior podcasts, and you'll hear me say that this was going to happen. And it did. And so we know what's going on there. So the stock market going down is not there, but that is not because of the government shutdown. But it is because of a few different things. So what is it because of? I mean, that's really the question then, right? Okay. Well, the question is, we're going to see that there's less money being collected by the government. That's one of the biggest things that's happening. That's one of the biggest costs of pretty much the largest recordable and definitive cost to the government for a government shutdown is that the government cannot collect taxes. Even though the government's spending money, as it always does, and even though we are in a deficit, as we have been for 4 or 5 decades now, and even though it's a slower pace of a deficit than under President Obama, what we're looking at realistically is that we're losing money because we're not taking in any taxes, and yet we're still spending money. And we're spending at essentially the same rate that we've been spending before. Again, people who are federal employees and are sitting at home are still getting paid the same rate that they normally get paid. They're just not able to collect it yet, but they're going to get all that money back. Contracts that the government has are still going to be paid once the government comes back in operation, but we're still going to pay that same. So if we had a contract for $5 million, we're still going to spend $5 million. We're just not spending it this second. So the bills are accumulating. Excuse me, I don't know what it is, something in the air. So while the bills are accumulating, we're not seeing a resulting reduction in the actual, or rather, increase in the amount that we're getting in taxes to offset that. So that's kind of scary. That's upsetting. So that's the big thing. Now, I don't know. To me, when I look at this, and I have to put it, when you put it into the context of understanding that short term and even intermediate term, the only thing that's being accomplished here is the government can collect less in taxes, even though it continues to spend as much as it has been spending. And at the same time, the total amount of money that we're losing is equivalent, and well, within a couple of days, will exceed the amount of money that has been requested by the president. And the president is doing this for the sole reason of saying and providing safety to the public. I look at it in that context because that's the context that it is. By putting up a border wall, we increase, and I'm not saying that it's going to suddenly stop all illegal aliens from coming into the nation. It's not going to stop all drugs from coming into the nation. No, it's not going to do those things. Will it reduce these numbers? Yes. Will it slow down these numbers? Yes. Will it deter some people? Yes. And that's what a wall is there for. It's not a solution. It is a deterrence. It is an impediment. It is meant to slow, not prevent anything from happening. You look at the castles in the Middle Ages. It didn't stop people from storming the castle. It slowed them down. It gave people more protection. It deterred smaller armies from even trying, but it didn't stop anyone. So if someone says, well, you're only saying that because you think it's going to stop all. No, come on. It's not going to stop all immigration, and no one expects it to. And anyone saying, well, you're only doing that because you think it's going to do that, and you're wrong. So the whole idea is a bad idea. It's a bad idea because it can't stop all immigration by putting up a wall. That is a stupid argument because, one, it's not based in reality. No one expects that. No one is trying to say that. That is not the expectation nor the purpose of a wall. So therefore, that's just wrong. Throw that out. What you're trying to do is trying to say, well, if it's not everything, it's nothing. Well, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. And so that's just a silly argument. But there's no reason not to improve the standing of the nation. Did you know out of the world, there's about 140 nations in the world? Did you know that 74 of them actually have walls surrounding them? And that's true in Mexico, too. Mexico has a wall. It has a wall with its southern border to try and stop people from Central and South America from going through. It didn't work. It's not a great wall. And that's mostly because they don't really care. Anyone who's going into Mexico usually is going straight into the United States. They don't really care about that, and they let them just pass on through. The fact that we have some 10,000, 15,000 people sitting in Tijuana and just across the border, stuck by the wall there, which is working, stuck because of the wall and the presence of the United States government there and not letting them illegally enter the nation. That's why it's a problem for Mexico right now. But normally, these people just go right on through and they slip into the United States. So Mexico's upset. But they had a border which was overrun by these migrants from Guatemala. Some 5,000, 15,000 people broke through their walls to try and get to America and denied asylum as they did it. So not only did they break the law of Mexico, not only did they deny an asylum, which means they're not asylum seekers, when they got to the United States where a better wall actually existed, the wall has done its job. 15,000 people did not enter the United States all in a day or two. They're stuck at the border. The wall is working. Why not make more? Why not? And it's going to cost less than the government shutdown. It's not about money because it's not enough money to make a difference. I don't know. When I look at this, I can't see the logic. And the only answer that we get from progressives, and I don't even want to say Democrats because this isn't a Democrat. I know many Democrats long term, and I don't believe they believe, when I see what's out there today, we're talking about progressives. We're talking about Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We're talking about Representative Anthony Brindisi. We're talking about the extremists of the party. We're talking about people who would be considered the far left. Matter of fact, just a few decades ago, they would have been considered socialists or communists. They would be there with Howie Hawkins and the Communist Party of America. They're not what we would consider, at least 2, 3, 4 decades ago, they were never considered Democrats. They're not Democrats. Matter of fact, if you ask many of them, they'll tell you they're not Democrats. Representative Ocasio-Cortez, she's not considered a Democrat. She doesn't consider herself a Democrat. She says she's a socialist Democrat, which means she's a socialist. She's a progressive and a socialist. She's not a Democrat. Anthony Brindisi's a progressive. He's not a Democrat. Those aren't Democrats. Those are fringes. They're the extreme. And so with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer supporting the fringe of their party, this extreme left movement, to open up our borders, which is ridiculous, and just allow anyone and everyone to come in and try to give them a path to citizenship is just stupid. And to say that $5 billion, which is, a clerical error in accounting based on the $4 trillion that we spend a year, to say that their only argument is, well, we should let illegal criminals into our nation. And any illegal alien that enters our nation without the documents, you want to call him an undocumented migrant, which is an illegal alien. It's just another way of saying illegal alien, without letting people know they have broken the law. They have willfully and actively broken the law. So they say undocumented. The document they're missing is any permission to be in the United States and breaking our law. So these illegal aliens the argument by progressives is illegal aliens should be able to come into America and should be able to have all the benefits of America for breaking our laws because America is an evil place. That's basically the Democratic Party, the Socialist Democrat viewpoint on America. We should give everyone anything they want because we're an evil nation and we're horrible and terrible. We're so horrible and terrible that everyone wants to come into America. Tens of millions of illegal aliens, people illegally come into this nation to work off the books and not the best working conditions. That's a fact. For wages that are well below even the minimum that anyone in America, below poverty wages, which is still a boost to their own nations. They're still better off than where they were. They know that they could come into America and live in squalor and work every day for minimal, absolutely poverty wages, and they will still be doing better than if they stayed in their home country. Gee, that's just the definition of evil, isn't it? That we have such a high standard of living that living below our poverty levels is still better than being somewhere else. For tens of millions of people with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, a year trying to still come in. They have lines waiting 20 years to get into our nation. Millions of people are breaking into our nation every year, and we're so evil. Because we're so evil, that's why everyone wants to be here and be part of this nation and take advantage of the things that we have. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it, does it? When you think it through and say, what does this really work out to? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, I mean, that's the government. That is the government shutdown so far. That is the reality of the government shutdown so far. And in fact, it wouldn't even be this much money, except our government is that much bigger. That we had 300,000 people employed in December, a number that exceeded all expectations and far better than anything any Democrat has ever promised. Remember, they were telling us before President Trump got elected and right after he got elected, they were telling us for months and months that the economy would absolutely crash, that there was no way we could help the economy, that this is going to be economic doom for the nation. And yet, we've seen nothing but prosperity. You have to wonder, the people who keep telling you that everything's going to go wrong are the very people who have been proven wrong. And we should also keep in mind that the very same people who have shut down the government over an accounting rounding error to benefit illegal aliens, individuals who are actively breaking our law, consciously and willfully, are also the same people who said they want to see a recession, that they want the economy of the United States to go into disrepair so that they can win political power. Let's not forget, it was just this summer of 2018, Bill Maher and many other socialists and progressives said they want the economy to collapse. Do you think there's a reason why Nancy Pelosi wants to increase taxes on the individuals and on corporations? Because it's going to hurt the economy. It's going to raise the unemployment rate. It's going to be bad for millions of Americans. And she wants to hurt these people, just like Bill Maher said, so that they can make President Trump look bad, so that they can win elections and have more political power. Is that not... every time I think about that, and that's what they've said. And I understand most people day to day don't remember this, and people forget, and politicians count on people forgetting these things 3-6 months later, but I don't. That's what I do. And we document that and we follow that. And this is what they've said. These are the steps. They said that the economy is going to fall apart and it's going to be Trump's fault. It didn't happen. So then they said, well, we're going to reverse the thing that actually helped the nation. We're going to take away the money from you. We're going to take money out of your pocket. We're going to kill and shut down businesses because you're making too much money, and that's good for our political opponents. So we want to increase taxes and kill the economy and hurt people because we want a recession so that we can gain political power. That's just what it is. It's not even like, oh, I'm making this up. This is exactly what they're doing. It's a mind-boggling to me. Hey, Kelly. Kelly's with us, Kelly Wildener. I'm glad to see you're here. And Kelly, we've been talking about a lot of things so far. Talking about the government shutdown. Been talking about a few other things that have been going on. So it's always good. And talking about the government shutdown, talking a little bit about taxes and how we got to this point in 2019, in case you missed that earlier. So I'm just amazed by that. But let's move forward. Let's talk about something a little different. And of course, if anyone misses any of this, any comments or anything, please just make sure that you come back and check it out. If you miss anything, you can always listen to the Facebook Live, or you can go to the website and you'll be able to hear everything and then catch up on anything you may have missed. So let me, and Happy New Year to you as well, Kelly. Now, let me move forward. There's a bunch of bills, and I still want to get to the local issue. So I'm going from federal, I'm working my way backwards. Then I want to talk a little bit about state. But of course, if anyone has any question, just let me know. If anything you want to talk about, please let me know. If you know an answer to the question of why this shutdown is good, or why it's worth more than $5 billion to not give $5 billion for it, please let me know. I would love to hear that, because I've yet to hear an argument that makes sense on why we shouldn't do it. But let me move to the state level. And let's talk about what's happening in New York State in particular, which is very similar to what we're seeing in many other states. Now, Governor Cuomo has come out and he's mentioned that he wants New York State to be the progressive capital of the world, in particular the United States. And I don't think there's a more terrifying statement that could be made than saying that New York State will become the progressive capital of the nation. Mind you, we're not talking, again, it's not Democrats, because this has nothing to do with Democrats or the rank and file members of the Democratic Party. I have great conversations with Democrats. I get along, and we see things very much eye to eye with many Democrats, because they're not socialists. They're not progressives. And that's why you hear Governor Cuomo, and people should notice this, he's not saying a Democratic Party capital of the nation, or the Democrat capital of the nation. He's not saying that. He's saying a progressive, which is a liberal, socialist capital of the United States. He's not saying Democrat. He's saying something different. He's saying the fringe of the party, the extreme, something separate of the actual rank and file members of his party. And the majority of people in New York State do not agree with this. This is not what they are. This doesn't represent their values and their views, but it's in that umbrella of the Democratic Party. And so many people, about 20% of each party vote straight down the line, blanket. They're a Democrat for life, and they vote nothing but Democrat, even though they have no idea what's on the ballot. They don't know any of the candidates. Doesn't matter. All they're going to vote is straight down the line. And that's what he's counting on, that people are not going to pay attention and don't pick up on the difference of saying, instead of saying Democrats or Democratic Party, he's saying progressive, which is a socialist, which is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which is Bernie Sanders, which is communism. It's Howie Hawkins, okay? It's communism. So what they're saying is, he's saying that he wants New York to be the progressive capital. And you have to ask, well, what are they doing? And I know a lot of people didn't do this. Last night, when Congress came out, they put out 250 bills. I actually read through. Now, the exact descriptions of all the bills haven't come out, but I actually read through it. And, they have, so this is their agenda in Congress, that representative, my representative for the New York 22nd District, Anthony Brindisi, will be voting on, and has indicated he is in favor of, in many cases, or has failed to comment on it, like taxes. He won't say whether he wants to, he has said he wants to increase taxes, but he won't say by how much, or how much of it he's going to support for Nancy Pelosi. And I look forward to Anthony coming onto the program, as he has promised he will do, to answer some of these questions. But some of the things that I thought that stood out was like, they want H.R. 51, where they want to make Washington, D.C. a state, even though historically, and the reason why we have Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, why it's not part of any other state, is the same reason why it isn't a state of its own. There's too much political influence there. And if it becomes a state, it would actually have more power than all other states and will have more influence. And therefore, it's a negative. But again, if you have an agenda where you just want to control more power to be able to, and it doesn't matter how you do it, the reasoning of why we didn't make Washington, D.C. a state or put it in a state is completely lost on them. So they want to make Washington, D.C. a state, which would then again also be the population there is mostly Democrat, so that would give them another boost to their political power, even though it actually defeats the purpose of the original government of the United States and why it isn't in a state already. But, that's just something to keep in mind. H.R. 40 was another one that caught my attention. National Apology for Slavery. Oh, yeah. This is, from my favorite, Representative Cheryl Jackson Lee, who wants to have an apology for slavery, and she wants to make, and this is the one that always gets me, H.R. 35, make lynching a hate crime. Just want to stop there for a second. And then, like I said, I want to get into the state bills, but let me ask you something. How rampant is lynching in the United States? 1, maybe 2 every other year, maybe for the last 3 decades at least. It's not a crime that's going on a regular basis. And when someone gets lynched, we're all pretty sure of 2 things. 1, that's a hateful thing to do to anyone. And 2, it's a crime. It's already a crime. It's called attempted murder or murder. Why do we need a hate crime? And this is the thing that gets me about these hate crimes. And it's like, oh, we need to make this a hate crime because there's so much, there is no rampant lynching going on. And if it were, that would be a different issue that we would need to address in this nation. And there's a more important thing to worry about than whether or not it's a hate crime, if it were actually rampant. But it's not. It's not a thing that we really see going on, so we don't need to focus. But more importantly, we already have it covered. There are already 2 laws that cover that. Actually, 3 or 4. There's assault and attempted assault. There's assault. There's attempted murder and murder. There's at least 3 laws easily and instantly that you can put on someone for a lynching. Whether it's attempted or successful, you can have them with assault and battery. You can have them with attempted murder and murder. What does a hate crime add to that? Especially if you get convicted of murder. You have, in most states, you have life imprisonment, and a couple of states have the death penalty. So you will be in jail for life or killed already. What does a hate crime add to this? What benefit does it make, whether lynching is a hate crime or not? I understand there is an image that's being put out there, promoting gender and racial politics, and this is meant to get the ire up of a lot of people and to make them feel bad. And this is about how people feel, so this is how they're going to vote. But the reality is, it has nothing. It's meaningless. It does nothing for anyone. No one is helped by this. Why are we wasting our time? If anything, if you have because we make such bad laws these days, then you're looking at the possibility of having more loopholes for politicians to get out of, for criminals to get out of, because there's more standards and more things going on and more shady gray area in the law than there was before. We don't need this. We already have the laws for hate crime. We don't need a hate crime that does absolutely nothing. If the underlying crime, and the worst thing is this is possibly abusive, so you can't make the case for someone being lynched. If someone has been lynched or attempted to be lynched, and you can't make the case for assault and battery, you can't make the case for attempted murder, you can't make the case for murder, but you're going to try them for hate crime. Well, your problem is, if you can't prove the crime itself, the hate crime is really pretty useless. That's the least of things to worry about. The problem is, why can't you get evidence to be able to get any of these other charges that are realistic? And if you can't prove those charges, maybe that person is innocent. Maybe. So either you need to be better at prosecuting and better at detective work to find the clues, find the evidence, and make the conviction and make it stick, rather than trying to find, at the very least, if you have horrible prosecution, if you have horrible detective work, if you've made a horrible case in front of the judge and jury, we don't need a fallback saying, well, we can't do any of that right. So we still need a way to try and convict someone, whether they're innocent or not. And we need to convict them, so we need a hate crime. No, you need to either be better at your jobs and get the right person and make sure it sticks because the laws already exist to do that, or not. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. But maybe that's me. I don't know. As a black Puerto Rican, I think that's kind of important. Not everyone may agree. And if you don't, I'm here talking to you. Tell me. Maybe you think that we need a hate crime for lynching because it's rampant, and maybe you think that it's going to save someone's life because there's a hate crime instead of, murder or attempted murder. I don't know. Please explain to me. If you're a socialist out there, a Democrat, if you think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the greatest thing since sliced bread, which means about 100 years, greatest thing in 100 years, please let me know. I'm here to talk with you. Let's share these thoughts. But as I promised, I want to get into the state a little bit. Now, I want to talk about the state of New York. Went on a tangent there, but I do want to address this. So, talking about the state of New York here, and, there's a couple of bills that are coming out in the Senate and the Assembly, and I don't know what's going on with these guys. I really don't. It makes no sense. By the way, if you want to look up some of this information, if you go to congress.gov, and of course it doesn't want to show up today. Let's see. How about, nope. Okay, it's not showing up in my system. I'll explain that. You can go to the New York State Assembly or the New York State Senate. You can look up their legislative sessions, and I was trying to bring up the link here. It didn't show. I'll put it in the description. That these are some of the bills and the issues that the progressive capital of the nation wants to address, that the progressive leader, the socialist leader of New York wants to address. And part of that is we want to make sure, New York State is losing over 1.2 million people per year. We are 4 years into the biggest exodus out of this nation compared to all other 49 states. We are 50th, number one. We are the biggest state that everyone is getting out. Our economy is tanking. Our taxes are skyrocketing. And to help that along the way, to help improve the situation, to create more jobs, to keep people in New York State, to lower the taxes, our New York State Senate is going to make sure that the furniture is anchored at a daycare. I swear to God. It passed the Assembly. Assembly Bill A0029. It's on the New York State Senate legislative calendar for 2019, and it's one of the top things that they want to make sure that they're going to take care of is they're going to make sure that the furniture at a daycare is anchored down, because that will stop the mass exodus of over 120,000 people per year, over 10,000 businesses leaving the state, over $1.3 billion in revenues getting out of the state, continuing. We're having taxes skyrocket. And the answer to all of that is we're going to anchor the furniture at a daycare. Really. That's really what we're going to do. That's on their list. What else might be on the list to help improve New York State? New York State Assembly, it's already passed the Assembly, Bill A52, which is to make sure that we have the optimal transportation patterns for students. We need a law on this. This is one of the laws that we have to have in New York State. We need to know that this is the best possible transit route for our students. And we have a law for that. We have a bill in the New York State Senate. It's already passed the New York State Assembly. That's going to improve things. Really? Really? I mean, this is on the 2019 legislative agenda. bolting down furniture and figuring out what's the best route to get a student to school. Okay, what else could they be looking at? They want to increase a tax on fuel, in particular coal, any non-green fuel. So coal and gas, and natural gas, they want to increase that. This is for the green energy people out there, which doesn't work and has never worked and has not helped New York State. But they want to have a new taxes, so they want to take more of your money. The very reason why people are leaving this state is because energy prices, all prices, are too high. And for businesses, state taxes are still too high in this state. State regulation is too high. And to help those businesses, to help those small businesses, Amazon doesn't care. Amazon got billions of dollars as a tax write-off. They don't care if you increase taxes because they got $3 billion. Guess what? The mom and pop business down on the corner does care how much it costs, and they're going to have a tax increase on the gas. The gas that they need to get to and from work and to get their supplies and take care of the business and for their workers to come to and from work, that's going to be increased because they want to increase taxes. But Amazon gets $3 billion. Mom and pop, they can close. And everybody that works for them can close. And they can leave the state and go somewhere else where it's cheaper. But New York State is going to raise taxes because we're eco-friendly. Unnecessarily eco-friendly. To the detriment of everyone in this state, eco-friendly. Don't you feel good about that? That there's no fracking in New York State, and the very things that, because the only way we can keep the lights on is by using gas and coal-powered fuel, because we can't do nuclear. So, we need gas and electric plants, and because biofuel and all the other green energy stuff doesn't work. We've been working on that. If you just go by the last 10 years, it doesn't work. So, you can be all happy about that in the dark without a job and see how well that works. This is stupid. Okay, and another bill that caught my attention. And by the way, you can go to the New York State Assembly legislative session, see this for yourself. This is going to affect your life, so you should know about it. What else are they going to do to improve your life? It's Bill A109 in the New York State Senate legislative calendar, which is that all the bathrooms that are single occupant bathrooms, you've been in a store or in a bar or a restaurant, wherever it may be, and they have that one bathroom, so only one person can go in at a time. It's just one bathroom. It's not a male bathroom. It's not a female bathroom. It is a single bathroom, or what they would call a single occupant bathroom. We must make New York, because it's so important to the 1.2, 1.3 million people who have left the state. It is so important to the $1.3 billion in funds that have left the state. It is so important to our taxes and for businesses staying open that we now must make sure that a bathroom, a single bathroom, is a gender-neutral bathroom, which I would expect already exists. And it doesn't matter. But it's more important, gender politics, we have to be sensitive and say that we have to make sure that the bathroom is gender neutral. And we have defined what is gender neutral, so that if your bathroom in your business, which is already struggling, like in the southern tier of New York, or even in the Mohawk Valley, where we have some of the highest unemployment rates in the state and in the nation, and we have people struggling to be able to pay their bills, businesses struggling to stay open, and no one is coming into these areas because there's absolutely no reason to come into here. You don't see people coming in for recreation. People aren't coming in for recreation, especially not in the winter months. Students are getting out of the state as soon as they possibly can. All the progressives, if they're not in New York City, they're leaving. They're not doing anything to help. And I guarantee you the conservatives that Cuomo has hated and told to get out of the state are leaving, just like he asked them to. And you're going to tell me that you want to increase the cost for a business to qualify as gender neutral, increase their cost on top of increasing their taxes that are already going up as is? And that's going to help do what? It's a single occupancy bathroom. Everyone uses it. Men use it, women use it. If you want to be a thing or an it or whatever you want to call it, and you want to use it, whatever you want to call it, Zool, whatever, you want to go and use that bathroom, you get to use it too. What's the point? Why do we need to have criteria that identify this is a gender neutral bathroom? Who cares? Besides the fact that it's going to cost more money, and it's another reason why New York State gets to regulate a business and to charge more taxes, which are closing more businesses. This is horrible. This is what your state is doing to you. This is what is not being reported in the news, that no one has taken a moment to talk to you about, to not let you know what's going on or the consequences of what's happening there. And this is important. And I understand this will probably be one of the least watched episodes I have throughout the entire year, because everyone gets bored with it. But guess what? This is what's going to affect your life. This is going to, seriously, it's going to affect your pocket. This is going to tell you whether businesses are closing in your neighborhood and whether or not you're going to be able to feed your family, or whether you're going to have to get out the state. It's because of laws like these, addressing useless things that are not going to help anyone. But that's just me, the crazy guy. That's why I do this, because no one else is going to talk about this. No one else is out there speaking about it. Now, you may disagree and you may think I'm wrong. Please let me know. If you think I've missed my base here and that I'm not sure and I'm not right, just let me know. I'm more than happy to hear what you have to think about it. But let's take a look at what is the state assembly doing? Those fun guys. And remember, the entire New York State government is all under the Democratic Party, in particular the socialist and progressive wings. They are it. We now have the state of the fringe. We are mostly Democrat, and we're Democrats being led by, we're a state of Democrats that are being led by the socialists and the radical left, Citizen Action, Antifa, those nut jobs. And this is what they're doing for us. They're going to make sure that we have the right kind of bathrooms while they increase our taxes and bolt down the furniture at daycares. Because, that's the way to improve an economy. That's going to create jobs, right? Okay. And in the state assembly, hey, what are they thinking about? Well, the state assembly is focused on how they can stay in power. They want to stay in power. They're all Democrats. It's all Democratic. It's all socialist to the hilt. And they want to make sure that they will be able to stay in power forever. Why? Because they want to pass a bill that will let the local city or county pick who can vote in an election. Think about that. This is Bill A00100. Again, this is all from January this year. These are the bills that we know for sure that are coming out, that they want to go out there and say, hey, we're going to allow various categories of people to be able to vote in public elections at the city and county level. This is something that the city and or the county, so New York City or Broome County or Oneida County or Utica, those are a couple of highlights, or Cortland in Cortland County, you're going to be able to, and actually those counties will be able to decide, any county that has 1 million people or more gets to decide. So essentially Albany, Rochester, New York City are going to be able to decide who can vote. And they're going to and that means illegal aliens. When you hear them say, well, we're going to pick the category of voters, well, that means you're going to let illegal aliens vote. This is a way to circumvent the law. This is what we're seeing in California, the other progressive capital of the nation, where they're allowing illegal aliens to vote, rewarding criminals with a right of citizenship that they have not earned nor they deserve. And we're going to give them that right so that they can vote, and they can vote Democrat. That is what the goal is, so that the progressives will be able to continue to give rewards to illegal aliens, and illegal aliens will then be able to reward Democrats. It's a circle there. They get to stay in power, and, the voice of the people, of everyone else, actual citizens, well, that's not as important. You get to be drowned out. You're thrown away. And we have Assemblyman Perry to thank for that bill, to be able to be looking out for the illegal aliens. And I am so happy that Assemblymember Perry is looking out for illegal aliens and the politics of the party so much more than actually dealing with constituents, the citizens of this state, and anything that will actually benefit people. Bravo. Bravo. That is such a great thing. Thank you so much for doing that. What a wonderful job. And again, you're not going to hear this anywhere else. No one's talking about these things. No one's talking about these kind of bills except me. And there's a reason. The reason is, besides the fact that is it the most exciting thing you've ever heard in your life? Absolutely not. Is it going to change your life? Absolutely it will. It doesn't, just because it's not exciting doesn't mean it's not going to affect your life. In fact, because it's not exciting, it's going to affect your life even more, because they don't expect anyone to pay attention to it. Because it's a dry subject, it's not exciting, there's no oohs and ahs about it. Because of that, they don't expect you to pay attention for more than 15 seconds and expect you to forget about it. And when you do that, you allow them to do whatever the hell they want, and they're able to make sure that your life is going to be worse, not better. And if you think I'm wrong on that, look at the economy of New York State over the last 8 years and tell me, is New York State better or worse at any point over the last 8 years? Has the economy improved over the last 8 years? No. Has the number of people who have left the state decreased? No. Has the number of businesses gone up or down? Down. Are people paying more or less taxes? More. There is no benefit that has happened to the people of New York State. If you're talking about the illegal aliens in New York State, they may have gotten a benefit. Yeah. Illegal aliens may be doing better, and technically they're residents of New York State, but they are criminals in New York State. They're active criminals residing in New York State who are being rewarded by the government in New York State. That's not the same thing as a citizen. And I'm talking about the benefits to the citizens of the state. Has anything gotten better? And I can tell you, looking at Utica, looking at Oneida, looking at Binghamton and Broome, if I'm looking at upstate New York, no, it is not better. It is not better at all. Whoops. Okay, we should still be... Sorry, my computer was indicating that we were disconnected for a second there. And I apologize for that. Don't know why it disconnected like that. But going on, it seems that's New York State telling me, or Facebook and the censor saying, stop talking about that. We don't want people to realize that New York State is going down the drain. And the more progressive that New York State becomes, the more people leave the state. And the fewer businesses are open in the state. And the greater the unemployment is. And the greater the number of people who are beholden to politicians to get government aid so that they can stay alive. That's the cycle that you're looking at. We become more progressive, fewer people are able to live, so they need more aid from the government, which means those politicians who provide them the aid that got them into this cycle in the first place, keeps going round and round and round, even though it's a negative cycle and it's actually getting worse and worse and worse. But that's okay. It's only been happening for 60 years. It's only another 2 members of Congress that we're going to lose. It's only the debt that rivals, a third of all the nations in the world put together. We have a debt. New York State has a debt equal to about a third of the world combined. But, who cares, right? We can just spend and get a bigger debt, and we can just spend more money because that's okay. Let me change subjects. I got a little more time left here, about another 15, 20 minutes here. So let me switch up gears and talk about the final thing that I wanted to talk about. But of course, anybody out there can always raise a question. I know it's the new year, so everyone's just absorbing a lot of stuff. We're recovering from a New Year's Eve, returning from vacations, and that's fine. And please remember, you can go to the vosspolitical.podbean.com, and you're able to hear the entire podcast audio. So if you're driving around, you can listen to it as you go. There's over 150 podcasts there that you can listen to over the last couple of years. This is the start of our fourth year of doing the podcast, and so we're very excited about that. And I've done over 130 No Soundbites Allowed podcasts. We've done 30 of them with the Facebook Live here, and you're able to see that. So we hope you enjoy that. You can also see videos and articles on other subjects, and not just the podcast, at the MVASS, that's MVASS.com, our website. You can check that out and see all of the articles we've been working on for the last 12 years, well over 2,000 articles there, and interviews with many politicians. And I should add in at this point that I do expect that over the next week or two, we'll be doing another interview with County Executive Jason Garnar. We weren't able to do it during the holiday season, but he has promised to, in January, to do an interview with us, and we're looking forward to speaking with him. We expect that we'll be speaking with State Senator Fred Akshar about some of the issues we've just brought up, and others as well, especially the red flag legislation, especially the social media password bill of State Senator Kevin Parker. We want to talk about all of those, and we expect to be able to speak with him later in January as well. So we have a few things going on, a couple of politicians that we know for sure that we're going to have on, and we'll be talking to many, many others. And eventually, Representative Anthony Brindisi, who has promised several times now over the last 2 years, he's made at least 4 promises to me to do an interview. He promised to do an interview when he was a candidate. He promised again when he was in Binghamton the last time that he promised he would be on the program a couple of times to do an interview, and I'm holding him to his word. And I've already tried to contact Mr. Brindisi, and I have been unable to get a response from Representative Brindisi or his campaign about having that interview. But, I'll keep waiting. I keep trying. Don't worry, Anthony. I am paying attention to everything that goes on, as always. So anytime you want to talk, you're always welcome here to answer questions. But the final thing I wanted to talk about is something a little bit more local. I started federal with the government shutdown and its implications, went into, and some of the bills that are being done by Congress, went to the New York State level. Now I want to talk about something that's a little more local in the last 15 minutes here, and that is what's going to happen with this announcement. On January 4th, out of the blue, as a surprise to many, many people, many politicians, many of the local politicos were all surprised to hear an announcement that was made by the district attorney, Steve Cornwell. Now, I should mention that Steve Cornwell is a Republican, and I am a Republican, a conservative Republican. I am a member of the Republican Party locally and county-wide, and so is District Attorney Cornwell. I have met District Attorney Cornwell a couple of times. We've had a couple of conversations. Nice guy. Don't know much about him. I know no more about him than anyone else does on the street. So, but just wanted to get that disclosure out there because I do not want to infer I know more than what I'm going to speculate on. I don't want people to think I know some inside track. I don't know. Sometimes when there are Republicans in politics, people sometimes tell me, well, you must know them and you know exactly what they're thinking. No, I don't. No. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I know exactly what's going on. And sometimes I can talk about it and sometimes I can't. But in this case, I don't know at all. So I'm speculating just like anyone else. And in fact, from what I can tell from most people who are in the region and have been talking about this and wondering about this, they're not sure either. Everyone seems very confused about this. But District Attorney Steve Cornwell announced on Friday that he is not going to be seeking re-election. Now, this is a very strange thing. And it's strange not because he's not seeking re-election. that happens from time to time. The thing that's strange is, why is he not seeking re-election? Now, that's something that Mr. Cornwell, District Attorney Cornwell, mentioned is because he does not want to misrepresent himself to the public. And I'm paraphrasing here, but basically, he doesn't want to run for an election, get elected, and then not finish his election, his term. So you have to ask yourself, why? Why is that the case? Why is the district attorney saying that if he gets reelected, he won't be able to finish his final term, that he's going to split it off? It's kind of like the exact opposite of what we're seeing with Governor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo, for all intents and purposes, as far as everyone in politics is aware, Governor Cuomo is looking to run for president. And even though he got reelected as governor, we're all expecting he's on the trail for 2020 to try and become president, nominated as the Democratic Socialist Party nominee for the presidency. But District Attorney Cornwell doesn't want to do that. And I have a lot of respect for that, by the way. I have a lot of respect that, one, he's being forthright and upfront about it, and two, that he's thinking of constituents and not lying to them and saying, well, elect me, but I don't plan to be here. I plan to leave this position before the time is up. And so I got to give to him, I mean, there's very few politicians that are actually willing to stand up and say, I'm not going to be here that whole time. I have another plan. And I'm not going to stay that whole time for this job you elect me into. That's important. And mind you, it's not that he's not going to finish the term he was elected to. It's what's he going to do after that? That's the big question. So I got to give him praise for that he's thinking of voters and being honest and fair with the voters and saying, hey, I'm not going to disrespect them by not finishing the term. But the question you have to ask yourself then is, what's he going to do? What is he going for? Why would he not be able to finish another term? He's going to have another job. He's got a job offer, or he's looking for an elected office. It's one or the other. Or of course, the third thing is he could retire, but he's a relatively young man. I don't expect that he would be, I believe he's in his mid-30s, early 40s. So it's unlikely that he's going to retire. So the obvious answer is, and the realistic answer is, he's going for another job. A job that would either be in the private sector and take him completely out of government service, so therefore something that would pay him a lot more money, which is possible. Obviously, that would not be in the southern tier. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, but it's highly unlikely that it's in the southern tier given the economic status of the southern tier of New York, and even in the New York 22nd District, central New York, upstate New York for that matter. And most people would leave the state. So he could potentially be moving out of New York State for a better job. Quite possible. If that's the case, I wish him the best on that. And hopefully he makes a ton of money, tons of money, and is able to give him and his family a better life. I hope so. Whether that's in-state or out-of-state, if that's what he's going for, fantastic. But that's most likely not it, because he could do that at any time. And most jobs, most companies are not going to say, well, we'll wait out a year or so to be able to give you the job. Most jobs are not going to wait for you for a year or more before they actually say, okay, you can start working. That's not realistic. So it's not a job. It's highly unlikely. It's 5%, it's a future job. 95%, it's not a future job. So what is left? Well, politically, that would be something. That does make sense, especially if it's an elected position. Now, I know some people say, well, he could be going for an appointment. He could be appointed to a federal office. And I was talking about this in my podcast last night. I don't think so. Now, that doesn't mean he can't. Maybe there's someone who is found the work that District Attorney Cornwell has done so far has been very exemplary, and he should be appointed as a judge or a federal position. That is always possible, and it could happen. I just don't think so. And that is because, with all due respect, District Attorney Cornwell is not a popular public figure. Preet Bharara was a public figure, did a really great job trying to root out corruption in New York State. Probably the why that he didn't move further in his career is because he did such a good job at rooting out corruption in New York State, and the backlash was that he couldn't continue to do that job because he's too good at it. And New York's way too corrupt, and Governor Cuomo doesn't like losing all his friends. So, with that being said, you would expect someone who has a higher profile usually is someone who's going to be able to get a judgeship or an appointment, a federal appointment. That's not always the case. Obviously, merit is involved in that, and I'm not saying that he's not qualified. I believe he is very qualified, and he easily has the qualifications to gain a judgeship or a federal appointment. So he's qualified there, but I don't think he's popular enough for that. Maybe he is, maybe not. Maybe he's going to run for a position. I'm not aware of one being available, but that's an elected position. And so he would, because he's not popular in a broad spectrum like a Preet Bharara was, then he needs to take time to get his name out to the public in general, to a wider audience, to make them aware. Because most people don't follow what the DA does. Matter of fact, if you ask 9 out of 10 people walking down the street, what does the district attorney do? They have no idea. They wouldn't be able to tell you, they couldn't tell you what the district attorney has done or what their position is there for. So if he's looking for an elected office that's separate of being a district attorney, he needs to get his name out there. And he needs to get attention. And he's realized if he's making the announcement on day 4 of January of 2019, and you're looking at least a year, if not more, out for an election, he knows that he's not well known amongst the public. His name recognition has to be somewhere around 2%, maybe 5%, 2 to 5%. It's really low, and therefore, for him to get elected to any office, he's going to have to spend the next year, year and a half out amongst the public, getting their attention so that he can get elected to this other office, whether that would be a judgeship or a federal appointment, either way, or if he runs for another office. So I know some people I've talked to believe that that may be it. He may become a judge. He may have enough friends and influence and has done enough of a good job that he could get that. It's possible. And anyone who tells you that, knowing people and doing a good job, but also knowing people and being well received amongst your peers is a factor. If you say it isn't, then you have no idea how the government works and how judgeships are done. That is a factor. It is not the factor. It is a factor. And it's important. But, so that's maybe a 25% chance. Overall, I think he's got a 25% chance of getting a judgeship or getting a federal appointment. But I think the biggest thing that makes the most sense to me, given the timing of it, is that we could see District Attorney Cornwell run for Congress in 2020. Yes, and as I said last night, this would be the warning signal for the 2020 election, and it's already started for the New York 22nd 2020 election. And the signal flare has been put out there and said, hey, here it is. This is where he's going. And I believe that may be it. Because instead of just talking to Broome County and the local district, he would be looking for 8 counties who don't know who he is. He's looking for an audience going from roughly 140,000, 200,000 people to over 750,000 people that he suddenly has to get his name out to, who don't know who he is, who don't care, because they have their own county district attorney. They don't care. So they're not paying attention to him. They have no reason to pay attention to him. His name has not been public, and he needs to reach out to those individuals. And he needs to raise money. And he has to gain the support of his party. And the Republican Party in 2020 for the congressional race is going to be a free-for-all. there are at least, and I have to say, I've been hearing since August of 2018, circled around in the rumor mill, some people have been saying that, District Attorney Cornwell could be running for Congress in 2020. And, a lot of people have been saying, yes, no, it's possible. Ooh. Now I think that, now that that is an open seat and he doesn't have to do a primary with a sitting congresswoman, I think that's a reality. But he's not the only one. There's at least two other people that I'm aware of that are looking to run for the 2020 Republican nomination for Congress. At least two others that I know are rumored, and one that I think is very strong. I should also add in there that among some people, there is another person who is rumored to be a potential candidate for 2020, and that would be myself, having run in 2013, and the fact that I have about 5 to 7% name recognition in the New York 22nd District. I've been on TV, on various talk shows, and I deal with politics. So I have about 5 to 7% name recognition throughout the New York 22nd District, which is higher than any Republican potential candidate at this time. Then again, it's also January of 2019. Who knows what's going to happen? And thus again, DA Cornwell, Steve Cornwell, is looking to improve his name recognition. Who knows what the numbers will be as we get closer to 2020. And for the record, I have not decided whether I would or would not. We don't even know if former Congresswoman Claudia Tenney plans to run again, which she might. An election that was a difference of 4,000 votes, that's slim, very slim. And I think it had a lot to do with the impression of President Trump, and it was a reaction and a backlash against President Trump more than it was about Congresswoman Claudia Tenney and the job that she had done, which by all empirical standards was actually very good. Whether you personally like her or not, that's irrelevant to the fact that she empirically was doing a very good job. And compared to her immediate peers, like Representative Richard Hanna, Representative Maurice Hinchey, she was doing an excellent job and outperforming them. And I would like to see, and we'll see if Representative Brindisi is able to outperform her or even match the standards that she set. And we'll see. The numbers are there. We'll find out what they are. So to me, it makes the most sense that that's what District Attorney Stephen Cornwell is doing. Now, I have not had a chance to have an interview with him. I've been trying for a couple years to get an interview with him. Hopefully, as we go forward in 2019, District Attorney Cornwell will come on to the program and maybe answer that or other questions for us. And we'll see. But I think that's what it is. And I'm willing to say right now, here and now, that that's what I think District Attorney Cornwell is looking at. He's looking at an eye of Congress for 2020, which should be very interesting. And it's funny, especially since it's the day after, or actually the day of Anthony Brindisi, Representative Brindisi, taking office and voting in Nancy Pelosi into Congress. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. So there's a lot going on there. And we've been on for a little while, about an hour and a half. So it's been quite the interesting conversation. It's a lot of information you're not going to hear in other places. It's a bit of a conversation that hopefully lets you know more about what's affecting your life every day. And whether you think it's important or not, this is going to affect you. And because if you're not paying attention to this stuff, it's going to affect you even more. Because a lot of politicians are taking advantage of that and counting the fact that you won't. And you should know what's going to affect your life. You should know how this government shutdown is going to affect you. And how much is it really worth it? Is this really worth it to you? And if it is, great. If it isn't, you should know that. And you should know what the reality is, what the real argument is here. And you should know where is the focus of our state legislation in becoming socialist, a socialist state government. What are they focused on? Is it going to help give you a better job? Is it going to let you open up a business? Is it going to allow you to be able to retire in New York State comfortably? Based on what they've said so far, I don't think so. And to know what's going on in your local government, especially with your local district attorney who deals with prosecutions and crime, and who may be replacing him and coming in to take that job. Obviously, there's going to be a couple of people, Democrats and Republicans now, are going to be looking to say, all right, who's going to run to replace District Attorney Cornwell? We need a new person. And who's the most qualified person to do that? By the way, to answer that question, I'll also put up my thought on that. I predict that you will probably hear former Binghamton Mayor Matt Ryan, who failed in his attempt to run for sheriff because of his political advocacy views of social justice. He lost horribly, as everyone expected, including himself. He knew he would lose horribly. Everyone knew he would lose horribly. He lost horribly, because that's not what the sheriff does. But it is somewhat what the district attorney does, to be able to promote social justice ideology in our legal system. And so you will probably hear Matt Ryan's name come up and very likely run for the district attorney to replace District Attorney Cornwell, which hopefully he'll do, because he'll lose again badly. I'm willing to say it right now. Yeah, he'll lose horribly if he does that. And I know he listens to the program from time to time, and I know I've known Matt for 7 years. So yeah, Matt, you're still going to lose, just like you lost. And we've had this conversation before. You're going to lose. If he runs for it, he'll lose. But it is something, and that's why I say today, in January of 2019, I could be proven wrong. He may be able to justify it. I don't know. We'll see. But that's where I stand with the prediction right now, and this is what I think is going on. But if you agree, whether you see the program later, and you have a comment, please reach me on either the Voss Political website, that's the mvass.com. You can reach me on Twitter at mvconsult, or you can send us an email. Please contact us, let us know. We're always interested in hearing what you have to say. You can also reach us here on Facebook and tell us what you think there. Tell you think I'm right, I'm wrong. Let me know if you think I should grow back my goatee and mustache, or if I should just stay clean shaven. It's silly question, but a question all the same. With that said, though, this has been a great episode for the first episode of January 2019, and we look forward to next week and speaking with you more very, very soon. Until then, I want everyone to have a great day. All right? Bye-bye.